I'm Sam, and I still make stuff. Just checking in today. Still eyeball deep in our massive oak plywood project, which is whew, taking up all my time, so I missed last week's update. But I thought today I'd talk about how to think about tools. Because as I'm making stuff and making a massive project, I'm realizing that I've spent a lot of time thinking about tools, and so I thought I'd throw some thoughts at you. Um, Anytime I'm teaching somebody how to do a project, first thing they ask is, "How much do I have to? What is it going to take for me to do this? I don't have a table saw." Well, you can get around without a table saw. I don't have a chop saw. You can definitely get around without having a chop saw. Don't have this. Don't have that. That's all. It's all fixable. It's But you need to think through all of your balancing acts. So there are two big balancing acts to contemplate. One is, how much is it going to cost? And is a particular tool worth it? Or if it's worth it, how good a tool should you get? Things been on my mind recently, circular saws. I've got a little $50 Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever special. I think it's a skill saw this time. I don't know. And I get them dirt cheap because I bust them. I use them to death. I use them on 2x4s, use them on site, use them for completely inappropriate usages. I know I'm going to bust them. It's not worth it. In this case, I'm trying to break down plywood, and that saw is not a precision instrument, and it has caused me more grief than it solved this go around. So I'm thinking, maybe I should plump out for an actual little better bearings, little better ability to jig it up, and so that's the first thing. Is I've never spent the money on it because I know I'm going to break it. If I'm going to break it, ugh. Then the other question is, do you need it or do you want it? If you're starting into making stuff, part of what's going to drive you is the tools. So getting a thing to make a thing, getting a thing to build a thing, you start focusing in on the things that you're using instead of the things that you're building. And I do it too. I'm not casting aspersions here, but you need to step back and think about, like, do I really need this or do I just want it? And there's two main influences in my life on this question. One is my grandfather Sam, who I've never met, but I was named for and apparently take off after in many ways. His attitude coming out of the Great Depression was get the best tools you could possibly afford. Because he did a lot of work on his own house. He built his own house. Did a lot of work on his tractors, on his everything. He was very much self-contained. Again, very much of a Depression era sort of an attitude. So you get the best you can possibly afford, and you won't regret it, because a good tool is a good tool. This is legitimate, and if you have the money to do it, definitely the way to go. My dad's attitude, because woodworking especially was always sort of a hobby, a sideline, was get as little money involved as you can to start, and then figure out what you need to do. Which is sort of my, at the moment, guiding principle. What's the minimum I need to get the job done if it's a new tool? Say if it's the first time you're buying a tool. It is silly to spend $200-300 on a circular saw till you know how you're going to use a circular saw. And it's pure craziness to drop a couple grand on a table saw until you've used a couple table saws. So if you're on your own, figure out what the least you can do, least you can get to do the job, then figure out if you're ever going to use it again. I've had people go out, I'm not going to call anybody out, but you know who you are. People who have spent $200-300 on a circular saw, since that's what's in my brain right now, and it has sat in their garage for the last 12 years because they used it once and decided, now I'm just going to hire somebody to do it. In fact, I recently did a little job for them with that circular saw. So, it would have been better to spend the $50 to go like, well, that just isn't my thing, and walk away from it. Especially if you're going to be what people are now calling makers. And in my grandfather's time used to just be called people. So if you're going to make a whole bunch of different kinds of things, as you get into a new thing, dip your toe in, is my personal attitude. Don't spend, if you're interested in pottery, go to your local, community college or wherever, make some pottery. And then, hey, if it's worth $10,000 to buy a kiln and a throwing wheel and everything else, then okay, yeah, you've got some knowledge and experience, and you can, I like electric kilns, I like gas kilns, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the questions are, you have then interesting answers. In woodworking, which is my area of expertise at the moment, there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to spend a lot of money on. To be honest, funny one, tape measures. You can buy tape measures from Harbor Freight or Northern Tools or wherever. That's fine. Doesn't matter. As long as everything you measure is with the same tape measure, the tape measure doesn't have to be especially accurate to the, empirical perfection of inches or meters or whatever. As long as you measure everything with the same tool, it's going to match. So if you measure a space that's 37.5 inches, take the same tape measure a piece of wood that's 37.5 inches, is going to fit. If you switch it with another tape measure, might or might not fit, because the two tape measures might or might not match. So I know I have been in my life responsible for 3 shops at the same time, so I have a lot of tool duplication. I have a favorite tape measure. Everyone has a favorite tape measure. My personal favorite at the moment happens to be inexpensive Lufkin, just because I've dropped it 3 stories and it's fine. It's not even dinged. But I've also got Milwaukee. I've got my dad's old Craftsman, which I use for sheerly the joy of it. It's the the nib on the front of it is not really a thing anymore, and it retracts under protest at the best of times. But it's my dad's tape measure. Still love that thing. We got a bunch of Harbor Freight ones. I've got a bunch of them. But you don't mix them up. As long as you don't mix them up, you're fine. Another thing, tool you use every day, like I said, circular saws. Circular saws are not precision instruments. Until you establish a workflow where you need it to be, it's not worth spending a huge amount of money on a circular saw until you know how you're going to use it. By the same token, a chop saw, in the best of times, is almost a precision instrument. So I don't spend a lot of money on chop saws because, again, take them on job sites. They get dinged up. They get bunged up. I don't count on them for precise cuts. So, on the other hand, there are things that you should spend as much money as you can stand to on your first one. Table saw. If you need a table saw, then you need a table saw that's actually accurate. If you're taking it on job sites, that's one thing. But if you're sitting in a garage and trying to make stuff out of a big pile of timber, you need an accurate table saw, and that's just gonna be money. Other cheap stuff you can get away with. Most sanding stuff doesn't. A very expensive sander and a very cheap sander are very much the same tool. But then there's things that there's a wide range that you kind of need to weigh price versus what you need. A lathe is a big one. A cheap lathe is an aggravating experience, because if it's not dead center, if it's got any wobble to it, you might be able to use it, but it's going to be a penance every time. Drill press. By the time you need a drill press, you probably need a decent drill press, but at the same time, even if you don't need a drill press, having a drill press makes life easy. I've got a little Amazon special that I would not care to do precision work with, but I do woodworking. I don't need that much precision. Bandsaws, there's a massive jump. The very cheap ones they work. You're driving steel through wood at the end of the day. But the bigger, more expensive ones are better tracking, better blade support. They can handle bigger blades. So if you're resawing, You know, the biggest of the 14-inch bandsaws will support, a good resaw blades, inch and a quarter. But a little desktop one will not do that. Even if theoretically it has the capacity, it doesn't. It won't. It's fine. Another thing with tools, brand loyalty. It's hokum. It's nonsense. Don't do it. I'm not a big fan of cordless tools in general. Two reasons for it. One, even though at this point battery life is good and strong and it's pretty reliable, it's still battery operated at the end of the day. If you can plug something in, it's one less thing to worry about. You get more power with less thought if you can plug it in, and it's cheaper. Second thing is, this is how companies now are trying to build brand loyalty, is to build a cordless system. So you buy into it like, well, I've already got the batteries for this, and I'm kind of doing that with Rigid right now, and I don't want to and don't mean to, but even knowing it's a trap, I've fallen into it. But sometimes you need cordless tools, and that's the ones I'm getting right now. But I've been trapped by Black & Decker. Back when I was running a shop where other people had access, I was buying the least expensive thing I could find because I knew people were going to tear it up and be disrespectful to it. But Black & Decker's changed their battery style, and they're going to do that. You can't depend on the batteries you're using now being good in 10 years, even though the tool will be. So it's kind of I'm not going to say scam because that's not fair. But it is a part of the planned obsolescence of everything. And the planned obsolescence, actually, now that I think about it, is part of the difference between my grandfather and my father's points of view. My grandfather could buy a tool. I've got granddad's tools that still work. I use them fine. I got a backsaw of his that is the most accurate thing in my entire shop. And I love that thing. I use it as often as a chop saw for finish work. And it's more accurate. I've got a bunch of his knives. I got a bunch of his chisels that are still, I've got a Stanley plane of his that is, he got it used, and he got it in the 50s, probably 40s. So, that plane's been around and in fairly constant usage for, well over 100 years. So, when you've got a tool, especially with hand tools, if you've got a tool that's amazing and is going to last forever, then that's that adds value for money. Whereas, most power tools are not designed for long usage. I've got my other grandfather's bandsaw, which is in a brief retirement now until I get the time to renovate it, because it definitely has some wear issues. Springs are shot, so it tracks the blade beautifully until suddenly, spawning, it doesn't. Which adds a certain amount of adventure to my tool life, but we're just gonna rebuild that from scratch. So I'm probably gonna do that on this channel, because it's definitely just it's gonna take time to get to it. But once I do, it'll be interesting. And then quick, I guess, update on what's gonna happen here. Gonna wrap up this massive woodworking project, which is I've been keeping sort of loose track of filming a little bit here and there, but there's just too much going on. My shop is too small. It doesn't fit. I will probably have a consultation and a conversation about fitting oversized projects into undersized shops, which we all have. But coming up after that, there is camera right now is sitting on an Apple box I just made. I'm going to make a whole set of those, and I'll show you how that happens. Apple boxes are a great first project, so look forward to that in the next week or so. And y'all be good. Think about tools, get interesting tools, and let me know what you think. Thanks.